Hello and welcome to our office hours presentation today. This is Paul Hoyt. Our office hours presentations are a relaxed informal mentoring program that we do at Monday noon Pacific time, almost every Monday. The recordings, the slides, and any exercises we might have are archived in the members areas, and then all of the recordings are also available on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons I do these office hours presentations is because I know that being a successful entrepreneur can be a fantastic experience, but I also know that it's tough. You need education, training, tools, and team to be successful. And I want you to get to know me, because when you do get to know me, you'll know that I really do care about you. I want you to have a success in your life, every area of your life, whatever that means to you. I want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every day as I do. My vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. And our usual office hours agenda is to have an in-depth discussion of a business success principle. Then we offer some closing remarks and special offers and any announcements we have and invitations for next week's sessions. And we go into open questions and answers. Today's a different format. Today is live group coaching the entire time. So it's going to be all open questions and answers. I'm going to do a slight review of the previous 4 office hours presentations we have done, and then we're going to jump into open questions and answers. In the meantime, I invite you to join us in our Brilliant Business group on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can reach it on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Brilliant Business. And on LinkedIn, we have a special link because the LinkedIn links are not as easily readable. So it's bit.ly/Brilliant Business Group. That's bit.ly/Brilliant Business Group. We do energy of the day and business success principle postings most every day. You can make comments and ask questions and share insights with other people and support other people who are in the community, and leave your takeaways especially. And if you haven't done so yet, I encourage you to like my business page on Facebook. Today's topic, as we mentioned, is open questions and answers, live group coaching. And I usually try to relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas of business. And today, of course, it's about any and all of those. So any questions that you have about leadership, about marketing, sales, product development, financial management, operations and administration, or customer service, any one of the 7 key performance areas is open territory and fair game. So if you have any questions on any aspect of business, you're welcome to ask it, and I'll do my best to share what advice and experiences that I have. Before we get started, I want to review the last several office hours presentations. Office hours 65 was on the power of habit. 66 was on the classes of business. 67 was on business valuations. And 68 was on great agreements. I want to talk about each one of those for just a minute to jog your memories a little bit. First of all, Office Hours 65 on the Power of Habit, which is a book by Charles Duhigg, was really a fantastic book about how we form habits and how we can change habits as well. And this was one of the diagrams that came from the book, and a little diagram that might be a reminder to you. But habits are formed when our cues go into established routines, which then give us a reward of some kind or another, and they're really enhanced and made more powerful, the habits are, when we have some sort of a craving, when this reward that happens to us is so exciting and so stimulating in some way that we want to have it again. So we have another cue that comes up, such as, I'm hungry, so I establish a routine of eating, and when I eat, then I have the reward of not being hungry anymore. And it was really a very powerful session. It caused me to look at some of the habits that I have and work a little bit on forming new habits. And I think habits are a very important part of our lives, as many of you know out there, that I think habits are the key to personality, and your personality is the key to your success. In Office Hours 66, we talked about the 5 classes of business. In the 5 classes of business we talked about were startup, steady growth, rapid expansion, the turnaround mode, and exit class of business. We talked about how startup business was like hacking your way through a jungle and really trying to find your own ways to revenues and to financial stability. How turnaround mode was like being in an emergency room where you're really trying to save the patient. You're checking on the breath and the bleeding and all of those vital signs that are in your health. We're checking about those in our business and doing everything we can to make sure that the business survives, and that how nothing is sacred when you're in turnaround mode except for your values and your virtues. In rapid expansion mode, it's like being on the inside of a tornado. You're just kind of hanging on and managing through the chaos, doing as best you can to leverage the success of this turnaround mode in terms of additional customers or additional attention in some way. And each one of those 3 can be a pretty stressful environment. Not so much in steady growth mode. That's like driving down a freeway. You still have to keep your eyes on the road, and you have to have some level of diligence and discipline, but you can relax a lot more than you can when you're in startup mode, rapid expansion mode, or turnaround mode. And the last of the 5 classes was on exit, and that's like selling a house that you lived in for a number of years. You have to fix it up, you have to make it appealing and attractive to the new buyers, and do it in a time frame that makes sense for you. But those are the 5 classes of business. And we also talked about how the mindset and the skill set of the entrepreneur had to change a lot based upon where they were in business, and also that of the coach and the consultant, that a coach consultant who is really good at helping a company in steady growth mode maintain their growth or to introduce innovative products and services and leverage the foundation that they've created is much different than the attitude of a consultant who is working with people in startup mode or turnaround mode, where you really have to practice the 80-20 rule, and every decision that you make is vital to the success of your business and the survival of your business. In Office Hours 67, we talked about business valuations. It was a fairly long office hours presentation, so we talked about things like the reasons to get a valuation, where to get a valuation, the different types of valuations that you have and the components of your valuation, things like cash flow and intangible assets and tangible assets and the team that you had in place, different approaches to determining your value, a lot of different factors that affected your value. We gave products on high-tech companies, on product companies, and on service companies. And then we talked a lot about valuing new ventures, because a lot of my audience is in the startup mode of business. So we talked about how investors value new ventures, such as the Harvard method, which is a calculated formula based upon expected earnings 2 or 3 years down the road and a valuation multiple. We talked about the Dave Berkus method, which is assigning value to progress, and the scorecard method that most every angel group or sophisticated angel investor uses to go down a checklist and give points and value to a company based upon how they're doing things like clarity of vision, the team that they have in place, the progress that they have in place, any customers that they have, etc. And in Office Hours 68, we talked about great agreements based upon the Book of Agreement by Stuart Levine, a good friend of mine. We talked about the 10 essential elements of any agreement, the intent and vision, your roles and responsibilities, promises and commitments to each other, the time frame of the agreement, fees and payments term, measurements of satisfaction, concerns, risk, fears, and consequences, renegotiation and dissolution, conflict resolution, and a statement of agreement. And we talked about how it's not necessary for you to have an agreement form that details these out step by step, although most of my agreements are in this format. We talked about how it's just a good idea for you to review the agreements that you're making with people and see if you need to add one or more of these sections to your agreement to make sure that you have great clarity and that you reach a good communication with the people that you're working with. So that's, to get started, a brief review of the last 4 office hours: the power of habit, the classes of business, business valuations, and great agreements. And with that, I think we're going to open it up to questions and any answers in any discussion topics. If you're online and live with this call, you can go into the question box or the chat log and ask your question on the call. And if you want to make the question be anonymous, please just say so, because we're happy to answer some questions anonymously. And I think we have one or more of the office hours emails that has come in has been asked to be answered anonymously, and we're certainly going to do that. So with that, Stephanie, I will open it up for questions from any of people who are on the call today, and it's great to see some of the people joined our call since we started that as I look down at the attendance list, so I'm really happy to see you here. And Stephanie, I will open it up for questions.
Okay. Our first question. I think I'm in a position in which I can offer advice to clients for personal growth and development. And I'm asking for some recommendations I can implement in order to test my capability without jumping right into the business. I need to find some ways to cultivate a clientele without establishing a business. Part one. There you go.
That's part one. And actually that question was submitted via email, so I've had a little bit of time to think about it. And the person who sent that question asked for the question to remain anonymous. So I'm just going to talk about generically about coaching as a new aspect of your product line, and then I'll talk in general about starting any new venture and tiptoeing your way into the venture. You know, there's a couple of different strategies out there that you get to choose from. One of those strategies is fake it till you make it, and the other strategy is being really honest with your customer base about where you are. So every once in a while I see somebody execute a very successful fake it till you make it strategy. We go out and sell the service, we go out and sell the product, we pretend that we're a $1 million company, we pretend that we've been doing this for the last 5 or 10 years, and we just jump out on stage and we sing our song, and we just do it as if we've been doing it all of our life. That, by the way, can be a really great strategy. I talked to a friend of mine who was using that very strategy in the new job that they had at work. Their strategy was simply to answer every question as if they had that question's been asked, a dozen times, to attend every meeting, to do everything that they were doing for the first time as if they had done it dozens of times before, as if it was no big deal and they didn't get nervous about it and they were nonchalant about it, and it worked exceptionally well for them. Other people, who may choose to do a different strategy. The other strategy is to be very honest with your customer base and the people about where you are and say things like, I'm exploring the opportunity to add a coaching service to my product portfolio, and I'm looking for people that who can help me give this a try, that I'm in early customer release stage, or I'm just getting started with this. Would you be willing to give me a chance to practice being a coach through allowing me to coach you for a few sessions, and then if it works out, we'll see whether we can establish a financial relationship. That can be a very effective strategy, and in fact, I'm employing that strategy myself and have for several months. As most of you know, because we announced it in December, and we'll be announcing it in a much bigger way next week, is my Awakened CEO Personal Mentoring Program. Well, I've been working with several people to practice that so that when I get into working with CEOs of $20 million companies, and we're charging a very fair amount for that service, that I have great practice and it really gains my confidence up to a tremendous amount. So those are your two strategies to start off with. Number one is decide which one is right for you. Is this a fake it till you make it opportunity, and we're just going to show up and pretend we've been doing this all our life and just go for it? Or is this an opportunity for you to be, you feel more comfortable, rather, being authentic and saying that, hey, I'm just getting started with this. I'd love for you to be one of my first customers. We're going to do it free for a while, or we're going to do it at a vastly reduced price for a while because we have an introductory offer. For example, an introductory offer to my first 10 clients we're doing it at half price. We normally are going to charge, I'm just going to pick a number out of the air. I'm normally charge $500 an hour for my coaching sessions, but during this introductory period, we're just going to charge $250 an hour because we really want to get started, and we've got a lot of openings in our schedule. So those are the two big strategies, or different strategies you might choose from when it comes to taking any product or service offering to the marketplace. Do we want to do it in an introductory fashion, or do we want to do it in a fake it till you make it, I've been doing this all my life, let me show you kind of fashion? Hopefully that was helpful. And Stephanie, I think there was a second part to that question as well.
Yes.
Are you there? I can't hear Stephanie, so she may be having a little challenge with some of her internet, although she was having a little challenge earlier today. So I'm going to go ahead and I believe that the second, let me look at my notes here, pardon me, because I do.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yes, I can hear you now. I'm glad you're back. Thank you.
Internet is so fun. Let's see. Can you please expound on the various business applications that apply to operating a coaching business, such as marketing, accounting, and customer care, as well as any books you might recommend?
Yeah, thank you very much. That really brings up one of the biggest points that I make in all of my product and service offerings to any client I have, in that you really have to understand the business, that there's a huge difference in between being a coach and running a coaching business. And the way I think you can best differentiate between those two is to imagine that you're running a coaching business and you're not the coach, that your job as the leader and the owner of this business is to keep 5 other coaches busy. And when you take that perspective, you realize, well, of the 7 key performance areas of business, that your job isn't to deliver the coaching. Your job is the other 6 key performance areas of business. Your job is to be an effective leader. Your job is to develop the products. Your job is to market those products, sell those products, manage the back office and the operations administration, and manage customer service issues, although that's something that you might delegate in part to the coaches that you have. Michael Gerber, in his book, The E-Myth, which I reviewed in an office hours presentation a couple of months ago, calls this the fatal assumption, which I really strongly agree with him. The fatal assumption being that, in this case, if I'm a good coach, then I can successfully run a coaching business. And the realization is that when your business is really going strong and you are the coach of the business, coaching is 30 to 40% of the business. If you're just the leader of the business, then being a great coach has nothing to do with, absolutely nothing to do with, whether or not you're successful in business. It's all that other stuff. It's the leadership, the marketing, the sales, the financial management, the operations administration, the product development, and the customer service that are really determine whether or not you're going to be successful in your business. Now, fortunately, with coaching, it's a pretty simple business. There's not a lot of complexity when it comes to financial management. There's not a lot of complexity when it comes to product development, although I do encourage you to think about how you're going to run your coaching sessions before you get going. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. There's not a lot of complexity in any one of the other areas. If you listen to my free mini course on the Business Survival Boot Camp, I talk a lot about coaching businesses in there and give it an example. I think on a scale of like 1 to 60, it's like a 29, where 10 is the lowest scale. So really the scale is like 8 or 9 to 60. It's really not a complex business at all, but you still have to pay attention to the other areas of business. You have to attend to the knitting, so to speak, in order to be successful in business. When it comes to being a coach, another little tip for you is that there's a lot of different types of coaches, and it makes a difference as what you call yourself. You can be a life coach, you can be a business coach, and if so, you may have a specialty area. It might be that we specialize in startup businesses, or we specialize in executives, coaching with executives, in which case you might call yourself an executive coach. You could be a transformational coach. You could be a personal coach. You could be a spiritual coach. There's all kinds of different labels of attributes and adjectives that you can put before that word coach. I oftentimes call myself a transformational coach or a professional coach in some way. And frankly, you know, I struggle in my business to find a good label in front of that word coach, because I do so many different things. Sometimes I'm acting as a life coach. Sometimes I'm acting as a business coach, and we're strictly talking about business. Sometimes I'm acting, you know, as a transformational coach because somebody wants to change. Somebody wants to develop a new habit. They want to transform themselves and their business from point A to point B, and that's really about the art of change management and the art of transforming yourself and your business. So that's a really good decision for you to make early on is how do you want to label yourself. The second one for coaches, and I've had dozens of coaches that I've worked with, is decide what's the structure of your coaching sessions. In some cases, people have a very clear structure to their session about first we're going to talk about this, then we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk about that. And by the way, that's the tendency that I have. I've got, you know, a 5 or 6 point checklist that I go through on every one of my coaching calls, because that format really appeals to me because I'm a kind of an analytical checklist kind of a guy. Other people just freewheel it. We just show up and say, hey, what do you want to talk about today, with no sense of any structure to the call other than a, you know, hello, how are you doing, and what do you want to talk about? In some coaching agreements or coaching relationships, there's not only structure within the call, but there's structure amongst the calls. So you may have a specific set of things that we're going to talk about. In session 1, we're going to talk about this. In session 2, we'll talk about this. In session 3, we'll talk about this, etc. I've seen some coaching relationships that lead the client through a series of steps to get them to a specific place at the end of it. So whenever you start your coaching business, think about what kind of coach you want to be and how you're going to label yourself, whether you're going to have a structure to the individual coaching calls or not, and whether you're going to have a step-by-step series of sessions that you lead your clients through to help them get from point A to point B or help you get your point across. And hopefully that was helpful to you when it comes to focusing on your own coaching business. I know the gentleman who put the question in, and I know he's got a tremendous amount of capability. It was my pleasure to work with him about 1.5 years ago when he was starting up another aspect to the business. So I know that you have learned a lot. I know that you've invested a tremendous amount in your own learning and your own growth about your particular subject area. So I know that you can be a great coach and a mentor to other people. And hopefully that advice was helpful to you. Stephanie, I'm ready for the next question.
Okay. I have an idea for a consumer product. What advice do you have for me?
Well, I'm inclined to say run, but I'll start out with a little more helpful advice than be careful. Again, referring back to my program on the Business Survival Boot Camp, I talked about the coaching business there, but I also talked about the consumer product business as being one of the most complex businesses that there is. It's complex because you have, of course, a lot of time and effort is focused on product development, but there's also legal issues, trademark issues, patent issues perhaps, copyright issues that you have to do whenever you're bringing a consumer product to market. And it's, from a marketing standpoint, it costs a lot more to bring a consumer product to market, and there's a lot of operational issues involved with that. So just when you go down the list of the 7 key performance areas, you know, in every single area of your business, it's more complex than running a coaching business. It's very difficult to bring a new product to market for anything less than $250,000. That's $250,000, and there's really no guarantee that your marketplace is going to want it unless you have employed the lean startup methodology or some other very similar methodology that helps you really know that the product that you're bringing to market is in demand by the people that you think are going to buy it. We did an office hours presentation on the lean startup methodology. We also did one on Nail It, Then Scale It, which both apply to the consumer products industry. We want to make sure that we're talking to our clients just as quickly as we can in the product development process. As I always say, engage with your clients and your customers as quickly as possible to learn the lessons that only the marketplace can teach you, so that you can make adjustments. In lean startup methodology, we call that pivoting, which is turning a little bit to the left, turning a little bit to the right, or just stopping altogether and saying, that we need to go in a different direction based upon your market feedback. What you don't want to do is do what I've seen other people do, which is spend $100,000 or even $150,000 designing a product that they thought that the marketplace would want, only to find out that the marketplace didn't want it in sufficient quantities and at a price point that allowed them to create a successful business around that. I don't want to see that happen to you. I don't want you to have a storage locker full of widgets that you can't get rid of because nobody wants to buy them, and you've sunk so much money into that. That can be a very painful and humbling experience. So if you're bringing a consumer product to market, I'm going to try to summarize here. Number one, recognize that it's very complex, that it takes a lot of money, and there's no guarantees. The no guarantees is in the sense of 96, 98% of all consumer product ideas never make it to market in a way that creates a viable commercial product. So it's a very risky business with a lot of complexity. Just recognize that going in. By the way, I've got a couple of clients that I'm working with right now that in both cases I've worked with them for many, many months, one for a couple of years and one for the last 9 months or so, who are bringing consumer products to market. And there are challenges that come out every single day. Some of the biggest challenges they face, by the way, have to do with inventory and have to do with lining up resources in Asia to manufacture their products and getting reliable products in a timely manner with consistent quality that will allow them to meet their goals in selling their products. It can cost, one of them is, let's just say, tens of thousands of dollars of expense every time that they order product, because they have to order them in a fairly high quantity in order to get the quality that they want. The other one is not near so much. They can order products, $10,000, $15,000 at a time, as opposed to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 at a time. So it takes a lot of money and time to establish a quality supply chain whenever you're in a consumer product. So generally speaking, I'll sum that up real quick. Consumer products bringing to the market is a high-risk venture. It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. And, and God bless you and good luck if you're bringing a consumer product to market. I'd love to be able to support you and share with you all the things that I've learned from, I would say a few dozen clients I've had over the last 13 years who have brought consumer products to market. Some of them successful, some of them not successful. I think my biggest kind of success story is Tanya Lewis and her product, the Green Glider, who came through CEO Space Community several years ago, and I was only a small part of her team. My job was to help her create the initial financial models, and I coached her for a few months on her journey. And her journey's been like a 6 or a 7 year journey. So I recognize, from a humble point, that I was only a very small part of her team and just put a couple of the pieces of the puzzle in place. And her journey has gone on now for many years, but now her products are on the shelves at Walmart. So it's true that it can happen to anybody can bring a consumer product to market, but it does depend on market demand, and it does depend on funding and financing and getting the right team in place. So God bless you and good luck when it comes to bringing your consumer product to market. Next question, Stephanie.
Okay. What are your personal habits?
Now that I'm sure you're referring back to the Office Hours 65 that we did on the power of habit. And when I read the book by Charles Duhigg, which by the way I still recommend to everybody, it really encouraged me to go take a look at my own habits and see, were there some of those habits that need to be changed. And I do confess that over the years I have changed some bad habits and gotten rid of them completely or transformed those habits into good habits. For example, I quit smoking on October the 10th, 1985. I remember that day. I don't know why I remember that day. I guess just because it was a big day. My wife sent my 2-year-old son and my 4-year-old son to ask Daddy why he was trying to kill himself. God bless her and God bless those little kids. And on that day I decided, man, I can see where this is going. That, God bless Sherry, my wife of nearly 40 years, for manipulating me in such a way that caused me to get rid of that nasty habit. But I did. I quit October the 10th, 1985. So I got rid of that habit, and along the line I've gotten rid of a lot of other bad habits. But let's focus on the good habits. What are my good habits? Those good habits have to do with supporting, I think, the balance in life that I think is very, very important. So there are a lot of different areas of my life that are important. My family, my health, my business, my spiritual relationship. All of those things are very important with me, and so I have good habits in every one of those areas. For my family, I make it a habit to talk to my kids regularly. Went to San Francisco not this last weekend, but the weekend before, and had dinner with my oldest son. Last night we had dinner with my youngest son and his girlfriend. And when I went to San Francisco, also had dinner, of course, with my daughter-in-law, Allie, who's a fantastic artist, by the way. We're very proud of Allie. And so I make it a habit to reach out to family. Make it a habit to call my sisters periodically, to call my folks, every Sunday. That's my habit. Every Sunday at 7 p.m. their time, 5 p.m. my time, I'm giving them a call to check in and see how they're doing and how their week was and what's coming up for them, and I really appreciate that. So we have habits when it comes to family. Family, and of course certainly habits about talking with Sherry when she gets home every day and doing what I can to make her day an easier day as well, because she works pretty darn hard. And I have habits of health too. 4 or 5 times a week I'm on my stationary bike riding, and I'm doing push-ups and sit-ups and doing other things from an exercise point of view, and deep breathing exercises, taking walks and taking my vitamins and attending to my physical health and going to the doctor, and lots of good habits when it comes to health. Lots of good habits when it comes to my spiritual practices too. I start each day in meditation. I end each day in meditation. I shift energy and awaken and come back to a higher consciousness place literally a dozen times every single day. Literally with every time I get up and walk down to the kitchen to grab a glass of water, I'm doing some sort of a spiritual exercise, and either a mantra or an affirmation or in some form of meditation to help shift my energy, raise my vibration, and get back to being the person that I am when I'm at my best. So that's just some of the habits that I have. Habits about relationships and family, habits about my health, habits about the spiritual practices, and of course I've got business habits too. Business habits look a lot like your company culture. So we have the habit of having a staff meeting every morning or Monday mornings at 8:30. I have the business habits of posting to Energy of the Day every day, which I've done every single day for the last 470 days. I have a habit of putting the Brilliant Business Group message, Business Success Principle of the Day, in the Brilliant Business Groups on LinkedIn and on Facebook 4 times a week. So, your business is driven by your habits. Your personal life is driven by your habits. I hope that some way that's inspiring to you. I really want to have everybody have good habits when it comes to personal health, their spiritual practices, their business practices, and of course with the family. In every single area of your life that's important to you, focus on building good habits that make that area of your life a lot more rewarding. And hopefully that was inspiring a little bit, because I encourage everybody to have great habits. Next question, Stephanie.
Okay. Okay, I want to raise $10 million to build a manufacturing plant. Can you help?
I can. I'm going to take a minute. That's a fairly long answer, so I realize we're halfway through the call, and when we get halfway through the call, I take just a minute to tell you a little bit more about me. So I'm going to answer that question here in just a minute. But I am a different type of business coach. I really focus on the whole person, as we just talked about with the habits. And I really don't want a lot of money. I just want you to get the support that you need, that you can use and you can afford. Because I understand that you need to spend some money on coaching, consulting, education, and training, but not all your money on that. So our sports services really encompass a lot of different areas on education, training, coaching, and consulting programs and growth management programs, which can be a do-it-with-you service. We do offer a wide portfolio of services. Some of them are education and training, where we teach you to do it for yourself and by yourself. Some things we do with you, like creating financial models and business plans and developing sales scripts and all kinds of things. And some things we actually do for you. You can outsource some of the activities of your business to us, and we become a critical part of your operations team. I will be attending the CEO Space session that starts on March the 22nd. It's my privilege again to be teaching some classes on investor-grade business plans. We'll have meal tables where you can join me and ask and have some more live group coaching and go around the table and learn about what everybody's doing. Also have private coaching and one-on-one meetings with people, lots of networking opportunities, a lot of great speakers at this CEO Space, so I expect it to be pretty highly attended. This is my 53rd CEO Space conference. I've missed one in the last 10 and a half years, so obviously I get a lot out of CEO Space. I often say that one of the reasons I go there is because it really inspires me to be at my best. I think I'm the best person that I ever am when I am at that conference helping people hour after hour after hour during the day. It's very inspiring to me, and that comes back and makes me a much more powerful and much more engaging person in between the conferences too. Next week, we're going to have an announcement called the Awakened CEO System. Stephanie and I have been working diligently with a lot of effort on this for the last several weeks, actually several months. The tagline for this is to build a better business and become a better you. We're going to have a whole bunch of new product and service offerings that I'm very excited about, and keep looking at your email for an introductory webinar that we're doing on Wednesday, March the 18th at 6 p.m. All of you who are signed up for our office hours session will automatically get signed up for this new webinar on Wednesday, March the 18th, where we're going to announce and introduce the new Awakened CEO System that we're very, very excited about. We know it's going to make a difference in the lives of a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, and CEOs. Next Monday, we're going to have our next office hours session. I'm going to do this on a book that I read many years ago called The Goal by Eli Goldratt. It's one of the most famous books of all when it comes to manufacturing practices and principles. I think it came out in 1992. And it's a unique book because it's also a novel. He wrote the book as a novel, teaching some great manufacturing principles, specifically on the theory of constraints. So I'm going to talk about that next week, in addition to doing the webinar on March the 18th, where we'll be giving the introduction to the new product and service portfolio we have called the Awakened CEO. You can let me know what other topics that you'd like me to address in future office hours presentations at paulsurvey.com, and do your homework in between is something I normally lead out there. I don't know that we're going to have any homework from this call. So with that brief commercial message from our sponsors here, which is me, we're going to open it back up to questions and answers. And I believe the question on the table was, I'm going to start a $10 million manufacturing company, or I'm starting a manufacturing company, and I need $10 million to make that happen. What kind of guidance can you give me? This is, by the way, I know who's putting this question in because I've been talking to him for the last week or so. This is an interesting one. I've had many people in the last 13 years of my consulting career have similar kinds of issues, and as it turns out, raising money for a manufacturing plant can be fairly easy, or it can be really, really challenging. And the difference is the proof of concept. For example, If I have, 4 biodiesel plants, and every single one of those biodiesel plants is generating a profit, and I've learned along the way so that the 4th one came up quicker and at less expense than the other 3, and is producing more output, and we're up and running, and we're ready to raise $10 million to do biodiesel plant number 5, so that we can leverage everything that we've learned on the first 4, and we know exactly what location to put it in, and we know who our customers are, etc. It's not going to be very difficult to raise $10 million for biodiesel plant number 5. It's just not going to be. As a good friend of mine, Bill Croyle, used to tell me, if the only problem you have is a lack of money, then you don't have problems. And that's true. If it's a proven concept and you know what you're doing and you've done it before, you'll find a lot of people interested in investing in you to do it again, because they'll have a lot of confidence that you can do it again because you've done it before. On the other hand, if your product or your service or your capability to produce output from a manufacturing plant is unproven, then you're going to find it very challenging indeed. And my advice to you is find some way to mitigate the risk, to make the risk go away or to be reduced through proofs of concepts and through credibility and demonstration of competence and capability. That may mean raising a lot less money, $500,000 or $1 million, in order to do a proof of concept project. It may mean teaming with somebody else and bringing a partner in who has done something very similar to what it is that you intend to do, so that you can mitigate the risk as well. So really be thinking about mitigating the risk. I've talked to several people who are having real challenges raising money for a manufacturing plant because they have not proven the marketplace and they have not proven their capability. So that's one other thing, is proving that the marketplace exists. Proving that when you build the manufacturing plant and you are producing your particular output in significant volume, that you have a ready and eager market who wants to buy the product at a price point that will turn a profit. I'm not sure exactly how you do that, how you establish the proof of concept, but it could be, again, partnering with other people. It could be proof of concept. It could be doing anything that you can to engage with the marketplace at somewhat less than $10 million, because there's not very many people out there today that are willing to just write you a check for $10 million when there is no proof of capability and no proof of concept, no proof of marketability, etc. So you have to kind of take it in stages as best you can. And if that, if you've already done the proof of concept and that next step is that $10 million step, then, God bless you, that's going to take a little while. I'm reminded of the rocket scientists, yes, and they really were rocket scientists that I talked to, who talked about the 5 different stages of manufacturing and bringing a product to market. Stage number 1 was concept, which can cost a little bit of money. Stage number 2 was prototype, which also costs some money. Stage number 3 was low volume manufacturing, and that may be the right choice for you. If you can do instead of a $10 million plant, can you do a $1 million add-on in an existing plant somewhere and rent some space or buy some space that will allow you to do a low volume manufacturing line. And if you can, that's usually the 3rd step in developing a high volume process. Step number 4, by the way, is a high volume manufacturing line, where you take what you've learned at the low volume and you up the volume by a factor of 5 or 10. Step number 5 is mass scale, where you typically repeat multiple high volume manufacturing lines, either in the context of one single facility or in multiple facilities. So if you can do low volume manufacturing for less than $10 million, that's certainly something that I would recommend that you do as well. Hopefully that was helpful to you, and hopefully that's helpful to the other listeners on the call as well. Stephanie, do we have other questions?
Yep, we do. I want to create a franchise. What advice do you have?
Wow, that's a great question. As it turns out, both Stephanie and I have a lot of experience working with franchise operations. One of my early clients back in 2004, 2005 timeframe was a franchise operation out of Denver, Colorado. I started working with them when they were 20 units, and we grew them to 120 units over a period of a couple of years or so. And I'm really happy to say that that gentleman gave me a call last week and said he was wanting to start another franchise operation. So I've had the opportunity to, he had a couple other ideas along the way, so I get the opportunity to work with him again. And another one of my clients is a firm called Enlight with James Pham, very popular in the CEO space community because of the qualities of their tea products are just sensational. James has been, he's a powerful advocate of tea drinking and the tea culture. I really have an awesome respect for him. I worked with him to help develop their financial model and business plan as well. They're getting close to taking the next step in their business, and I'll defer any other conversation about that because what that next step is for them. So I'm excited about working with franchise operations and how it can be a wonderful choice for you to expand your business. Instead of using a tremendous amount of expansion capital that you have to raise from investors, you can essentially expand your business through the investments of owner-operators in your franchises, 1 or 2 or 5 at a time. So that's the difference in between having store-owned locations like Starbucks does, or having franchise operations like McDonald's and Quiznos and Subway does. So your choice as to whether you expand your business via company-owned locations or via franchise locations. It really matters as to what the profitability is and what your choice is as a leader and what the financing available is. I think the number one thing on franchises, and I'm going to invite Stephanie to offer some counsel and advice here in just a minute, but my number one thing is you really should have a profitable business to start off with. Give it a profitable business, and then I would say open location number 2 and even location number 3 to prove that the business is scalable, to prove out your operations and trainings manuals, to prove that somebody else can be successful in the business than just you, and then make the decision whether to franchise or go with company-owned locations. Stephanie and I had the opportunity to work on one of her business concepts a few years ago, so I know that she has a tremendous amount of experience when it comes to franchising. So I'll let her chime in for just a little bit and share her experience with you. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Well, you said something there that's just so perfectly true, and that's what you talked about it for the last couple of questions, is getting the first couple of profitable models. Your home base, your branch, whatever that is, as you said. That's something that a lot of people fail to recognize, and it's franchising is a lot of fun, and it's not as hard as people think it is, but it is extremely critical that you have your proven model before you move forward. And sometimes that could be 6 or 12 months, sometimes that could be a couple of years, depending a lot on what your model is. But once you have that proven model, then expanding that and scaling it up it's a lot easier. It just makes more sense. So you were just absolutely perfectly right on that. Something that I failed to pay enough attention to when I did my own franchise, so I learned the hard way.
Well, I think that you did. Let me chime in there, Stephanie. I thought that you were doing a lot of things right. In your particular case, the challenge was, having that first location be a profitable business model so that you could duplicate it.
Yep. Franchise is all about systems and control, and I think that there's a big difference between franchising and licensing, and sometimes, depending on the amount of control that you want to exert, there's some real profitable and, there's different opportunities for companies between that licensing and the franchising. So that's another thing that I would say is, there's franchising might not be right for you, but licensing might be another option that would work very well for some for many companies as well.
That is a great point. That is a great point. And there are a lot of different ways. I talked about company-owned locations and then franchising, but as Stephanie points out, there are other options too, like business opportunities, which are not, they don't have near the control or the brand promise that franchising does, but they're also much less expensive and a lot less of a hassle to do. And you can do the licensed affiliate or the certified practitioner or a lot of different, or the dealer-distributor model. There's a lot of different business models that allow you to expand and find outlets to the marketplace out there in addition to the franchise model. So we'd love to talk to you about any and all of those. If you have a business that you think is going to be profitable or is profitable and you want to look at your expansion opportunities, we'd be happy to have that conversation with you because, you know, after 13 years of being a business consultant, and as it turns out, I had like 37 years of business experience before then. That's right, I'm about 6 months away from my 50th anniversary in working in business. I started when I was 14 years old working in a taco stand where I walked to work, you know, several times a week as a part-time job. So it's been a long time out there making tacos and, you know, designing coaching systems and helping other people design and implement their growth strategies and their objectives. So we're happy to talk to you about different options you have for starting and expanding and growing your business too. Stephanie, any other questions for us today?
Yes. What do you think of the new Apple Watch?
That's an interesting question. And a good digression. And I don't know quite what to think about the Apple Watch. You know, I wore a wristwatch for a number of years, and then I started carrying a smartphone in my pocket, you know, 5 or 6 years ago, and then my watch battery went away, and I couldn't find a place to get a watch battery, so I just took my watch off and put it in the drawer, and I don't even know where it is anymore. So I haven't carried a watch for a long time. As many people don't carry a watch anymore because it's convenient for you to just look at your smartphone or your other phone to tell what the time is. But I do find it inconvenient to have to reach into my pants pocket and grab my smartphone whenever I want to see what the time is. There are certainly times when I think I just like to, you know, look at my wrist to see what the time is. So I think it's a pretty good idea. I think to start, I think it's going to be a huge success, by the way, even though it's got a fairly high price point to it. It's, I think the initial models are $350, but they have models at $5,000 and $10,000. But I think this is going to be something that's going to catch on, you know, and pretty soon the price point is going to come down. The Apple Watch 2, the Apple Watch 3, I'm expecting to see price points down in the, you know, $150, $200 range within, you know, 18 months or so. I don't know what we're going to see at Christmas, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Christmas models come out that were in the, you know, $200 price range. So expect to see the prices go down quite a bit over the next few years for the smartwatch. For those of you who haven't looked at it quite yet, the smartwatch is kind of tethered to and is an auxiliary input device, essentially, to the smartphone that you have in your pocket. So it communicates with the smartphone via Bluetooth. You can answer phone calls, you can look at your calendar, you can do all kinds of things. Not everything, of course, that you can do on your smartphone can you do on your iWatch, but the iWatch, or the Apple Watch rather, the Apple Watch is a lot more than just, you know, a watch. It's you know, an alternate input device, keyboard and screen kind of input device for the smartphone that's in your pocket or purse, so that you don't have to reach in there and get it to answer calls or to check your calendar or to send and receive texts and those sorts of things. So I'd say I think it's going to be a great big success. I'm not going to jump out and go get one right away, but if anybody would like to buy me an Apple Watch for Christmas, I'd be most grateful for that. And hopefully, I have 12:58, so we're coming to the end of it. Stephanie, do we have any other questions? Anybody that's been listening here for the last, you know, 55 minutes or so, if you've got any last minute questions, now's the time to type them into the question window because we'd love to talk to them before we call an end to today's call. Any other questions, Stephanie?
Nope, that's it.
Well, I want to thank you all for joining me on the call today. I really do enjoy the questions and answers and open discussion portion of my regular calls, and I enjoy the opportunity to do the live group coaching calls as well. Next week, come back and join us. We're going to do a couple of presentations. Next week on the Monday office hours, we'll be talking about the book The Goal by Eli Goldratt. And on Wednesday, March the 18th, look at your emails for your invitations to our introductory webinar for the brand new system called The Awakened CEO. We're very, very excited about that. Until I see you again, this is Paul Hoyt, wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.